Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone, and hope you all have a nice day. My name is Hennie Rahmawati, and today I will present to you about the article talking about anxiety when students speaking in English. So, for the title of my article is Anxiety and Speaking English as a Second Language from Lindy Woodrow. Okay. All right, first I will tell you about the background of this research. This research indicates that anxiety has a debilitating effect on the language learning process. There is evidence that language learning anxiety differs from other forms of anxiety. It's like you see in the slide, anxiety have effect on language learning process. Anxiety experience in communication in English can be debilitating and can influence students' adaptation to the target environment and ultimately the achievement of their educational goals. And there is from an expert, Horwitz and Co. 1986, made a valuable contribution to theorizing and measurement in language learning anxiety. They considered anxiety as comprising three components: communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. So he said there is three components that makes this anxiety appears. That is communication apprehension, test anxiety, and fear of negative evaluation. Instrumentation to measure foreign language anxiety typically uses Likert type scales to measure responses to stressor. Horowitz FLCAs included items relating to communication. So to measure anxiety, the writer using FLCAs or foreign language anxiety scales. This scale has been used in a large number of research projects, Orbit 2001, and the scale has been found to be reliable and valid. And according to McIntyre 1999, numerous studies have found that this anxiety is negatively related to language performance, with some researchers claiming it is one of the strongest predictors of foreign language success. Okay. So, an aim of this research is this study sought to investigate the construct of language learning anxiety of sample of students studying English for academic purposes. This article describes a research project concerning the conceptualization of second language speaking anxiety, the relationship between anxiety and second language performance, and the major reported causes of second language anxiety. And for the theoretical framework of this research is the 33-item foreign language anxiety scale, FLCAS Horwitz 2001. So Horwitz FLCAS includes items relating to communication apprehension. For example, I tremble when I know that I'm going to be called on the language class. And then for the test anxiety, for example, I am usually at ease during tests in my language class. And last is fear of negative evaluation. For example, I get nervous when the language teacher asks questions which I have not prepared in advance. And then for the research method. But before I tell you about the research method, I will tell you about how the participant joined this research. The participants for the study were all in their final months of studying English immediately. And prior to enrolling on university's course in Australia, they attended English for Academic Purposes AAP courses at accredited intensive language center in Australia. The majority of students were from Asia countries, with students from China representing the largest group in sample. So for the instrument, there are quantitative data from the second language anxiety speaking scales and IELTS type oral assessment. The study involved three sources of data: quantitative data from the second language anxiety speaking scales, IELTS type oral assessment, and qualitative data from the interview data. The existing instrumentation used to measure language learning anxiety was not considered appropriate because it did not reflect the second language environment of the sample. So the second language speaking anxiety scales SLSAS was constructed. The instrument was piloted and refined based on empirical and theoretical justification, Woodrow 2003. And the questionnaire consists of 12 items on a 5-point Likert type scale. The items reflected the communicative situation the participants were likely to encounter according to the communicative setting, and the items were measured by the extent to which the participant agreed or disagreed with the statement. And last, the performance variable was measured using an IELTS type oral assessment. The performance variable was measured using this. This assessment took approximately 10 minutes and consisted of three stages: introduction and general interview, individual long-term, and two-way discussion. 47 participants took part in an interview with this researcher. The interview participants were selected based on class groupings, ethnicity, gender, and perception of anxiety. So that representative sample of participants could be surveyed. The participants were asked about whether they experienced second language speaking anxiety, in what situation they felt anxious, and how they felt. These interviews were audio recorded and transcribed. And then for the findings of the research, the qualitative data also provided support for an in-class and out-of-class distinction. Some participants reported experiencing out-of-the-class anxiety. Some students feel anxious when they talk with the native speakers. The participants say they just feel anxious when meeting with native, or they anxious because they know their language ability is still not good, or and so on. According to the quantitative data, giving oral presentation was rated the highest and taking part in group discussions was rated the lowest. Giving presentation makes students should be stand in front of the class, and this activity is one of the most makes anxiety appears. In other words, it seems that feels his or her anxiety is due to a lack of practice, thus relating to a skill deficit type of anxiety. Interestingly, nearly all of the interviewer participants reported experiencing some anxiety when speaking English, communicating with native speakers, was the most report to out of the class treasure. And for the conclusion of this research is this study found that a dual conceptualization of second language speaking anxiety as measured by second language speaking anxiety scale was relevant to students studying English in Australia. The result indicate that the instrument is reliable and valid, and thus provides researcher with a new instrument to measure second language speaking. It would be interesting to use with second language speakers of our linguistic level, and also with students after they have started their university courses to investigate it contextual influence on second language speaking anxiety. And then anxiety is clearly an issue in language learning and has a debilitating effect on speaking English for some students. So it is important that teachers are sensitive to this in classroom interaction and provide help to minimize second language anxiety. And last is qualitative data indicated that giving oral presentation and performing in front of classmates were the most reported stressor or in class situation. Okay. So this study also provides support for the notion of stages of anxiety. Thus, a student may experience anxiety due to skill deficit or retrieval retrieval interference. This has implication at a classroom level. A skill deficient anxious student would benefit from instruction in language learning strategies and scaffolding of skills, whereas a retrieval interference anxious student would benefit from the sensitization and relaxation techniques. It is important to take consideration communication both in and outside of the class and ensure that students have the necessary skills and practice for everyday communication. This could be achieved by shutting out of the class tasks, utilizing the rich linguistic resources available to learners. For example, students could join a local library and participate in local community activities as well as participating in the university community. So that's all from me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.